floated in my consciousness, and I desperately tried to cling to the fading, distorted images that had been so clear only moments ago. Images of my family, memories of a family I had loved with everything I had, a family I still loved with everything I had left. But it was harder now that someone had taken them from me. I splashed ice-cold water on my face and used it to braid my chestnut hair. I slipped from my room and wandered outside to feed the chickens. Hungry beasties. The chill air seeped into my clothes and clung to my bones. I ignored my discomfort as I finished my chores and made my way back inside and to the kitchens. The hallways remained quiet and still, even though most of the monastery would be awake by now. The Temple of Eternal Light required its priests to take a vow of silence from the time they were small children to the moment of their death. Possibly beyond death. I wasn't an expert on the Brotherhood of Silence, even if I had called this isolated place home for the last 8 years. It wasn't like they could answer my questions if I asked them. Instead, they would point me toward tomes and texts and endless pages of literature on the light. And as interesting as that sounded, I would just have to trust that my afterlife would be loud. Father Tarash nodded to me as I swept past him in a rush to the fireplace. He stood at the stone table, kneading dough for lunch. Father Sallow stood next to him, chopping vegetables for some variation of the stew served at every meal. The monks were a fastidious people. Routine was as much a part of their religion as the light they worshipped. I thrust my hands toward the fire and inhaled the scent of embers and boiling oats. I closed my eyes and let the heat wash over me. I would smell like a fire pit for the rest of the day, but I didn't care. Anything to chase away the cold. A tongue clucked from behind me, and I took a step back. I glanced over my shoulder to see Father Tarash wiggle his finger at me. "Step back, you'll burn your dress," he silently warned with a pointed look. "You'll catch a flame and become a fire-breathing dragon forced to take to the skies to escape the rioting villagers." Admittedly, that last thought was mine. Father Sallow clucked his tongue next. Even without looking at me, I knew he was shooing me away. I stepped back from the fire and grabbed an apple. I'd been on an oats strike for 2 years now. The monks were impressed with my firm stance, or disgusted, I wasn't sure which, but since their vow of silence spanned decades, I had a feeling they appreciated my stubborn conviction. I sank my teeth into the juicy flesh of the fruit and hurried from the warm kitchen back to the stark bite of the hallways, whose constant twists and turns I could navigate with my eyes shut. When they had first brought me here, I hadn't been well. I couldn't manage to sleep for more than an hour at a time. Afraid of the thoughts that swirled around my ever-active mind, I wandered the temple in search of peace and the kind of silence that escaped me, even in a silence-vowed monastery. I never found it, but I did eventually settle in enough to sleep through the night. It had taken 3 years. Through the open library door on the top floor, light spilled into the hallway. This was my favorite space on the grounds. I stepped to the side of the Tenovian black cedar doors and traced the outline of a 3-headed serpent wrapped around textured scrolls, an elegant script I didn't understand. I reached higher to finger the hilt of a powerful sword, the tip fashioned like a quill, and ink like blood dripping from the blade. The Brotherhood of Silence took great pride in the library they protected beyond these doors. A tongue clicked from inside the room, and I stepped inside, knowing I had dallied long enough. Father Garius stood waiting for me with a disapproving furrow to his bushy eyebrows. His hands were clasped in front of him, giving him the facade of patience and understanding, even while I knew it took everything inside him to honor his vows and not shout at me for wasting his time. Again. When I first came here, Father Garius would communicate with me through scrawled notes. But after 8 years, I had learned to read facial expressions and silently spoken thoughts. The monks' expressions were not nearly as serene and stoic as they thought they were.